here for the first time, and good to see you if you're one of the regulars. And our group runs by the practice of generosity. So the Dharma teachings here are offered freely, but we do ask for donations, and we have what we call a virtual Dana Bowl for donations on our website. And you can make your donations at imsb.org/donate or imsb.org/PayPal. And I'll put those links in the chat box. I want to welcome our guest teacher for this evening, Roger Kamenetz. I'm personally very pleased to meet Roger. I read his book, The Jew and the Lotus, several years ago and was extremely impressed and really, really appreciated and learned a lot from that book. And more recently, I've read his book on the history of last night's dream, and dreaming is his topic tonight.
Thank you. Please notice, again, I want to welcome some of you who came in a little bit late, and happy to see everyone here. So tonight we're going to be talking about dreams and afflictive emotions. So it's a topic that really I began to get interested in quite a long time ago. Actually, during the meeting in Dharamsala with His Holiness that I wrote about in the Jew and the Lotus. And so that's when I first heard how dreams can be helpful. I'm sorry, that's when I first learned about the darker emotions, what's called the afflictive emotions, which are known in Sanskrit as kleshas. I first heard about that in 1990 during this dialogue as the Jewish group was preparing to meet with His Holiness. The question came through Michael Saltman, who was helping us set the meeting up. And he said that His Holiness was curious to know what the Jewish practices were to purify afflictive states of mind or afflictive emotions. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, kreplach, the food maybe. I had no idea really what the answer was in the Jewish context, although later it occurred to me that perhaps the practices during the Day of Atonement in particular, group confession, forgiveness of others, certainly is a way to purify and deal with afflictive emotions, primarily in terms of how we behave to others. But tonight I want to speak of a different view of afflictive emotions and how we might deal with them, and it's the one we get by paying closer attention to our dreams. And it's here from His Holiness himself in a little video that I found, which is really very delightful because he's just answering questions from some students in India, I think. So let's just listen to the Dalai Lama and see what he has to tell us about afflictive emotions or afflictive states of mind.
Thank you. If I may ask, what do you do when you have some negative thoughts in your head? What is the simplest thing one can do to rid oneself of those negative thoughts, so overthinking and negative?
Negative emotion, you see, mainly related with two things. One, self-centered attitude. I, my, like that. See, that. Then another sort of factor is we accept a reality as it appears. The shunyata, anatma theory, and the shunyata theory, nothing exists as it appears. So since all negative emotion very much based on appearances, so once you realize nothing exists as it appears, the wisdom side, parija side, upaya side, altruism, so the antidote of self-centered attitude. So self-centeredness is one factor. And then believe or grasp things as appears. These two things are the basis of negative, destructive emotion. Okay.
So, in answer to the question, then, therefore, His Holiness is essentially identifying two main causes of self-destructive or afflictive emotions. One is from the point of view of the ego, from the point of view of the self-centeredness, this idea that only I am important, the whole world revolves around me, and whatever's happening to me is topmost and most important, and whatever is happening out there is of lesser importance. And then the second, which is about the world out there, is saying that phenomena as they appear, which is really a good definition of a phenomena, it's something that appears to us, is reality, plain and simple. So he kind of suggests antidotes for afflictive emotions from the side of the ego or the point of view of the self, is to practice altruism, concern for others, as an antidote for self-centeredness. And then, in order to understand that all phenomena are actually not inherently real, he suggests it's important to understand, as he calls it, the theory of shunyata, or emptiness. But I think so. His answer is he's a philosophical teacher in many ways, and his answer essentially is to apply intellect and precepts to deepen understanding both of the nature of what's out there, phenomena, and what's the nature of the I, the capital I, right, that perceives phenomena, that to understand both of these. But I think we understand that also there are practices, not simply philosophy, but practices for experiencing more directly in meditation, both the contingent or dreamlike nature of what's out there, but also in effect, the dreamlike nature of self, of the I. So one of His Holiness's teacher was a man named Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. And since we're talking about dreams, I found this interesting. And he says that to counteract the kleshas is a Sanskrit word for what's translated as afflictive emotions, by which, I should quickly add, we mean things like anxiety, rage, resentment, envy. I would include guilt and shame. I'm not sure the Tibetans would, but I do. So these are the emotions that keep us awake at night, or that afflict us, that punish us in some way. And to counteract these kleshas, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche says, first we have to establish the empty nature of all phenomena, that things that arise before us, whatever we're seeing in the world, has a relative or contingent reality, but does not have inherent reality. And there are lots of philosophical arguments about that. But so obviously, he says there are different ways to reach that conclusion and to experience it directly. And for instance, to reach that conclusion, we may undertake a whole course of study or reflection or meditation. I'm sure that many of the practitioners here are familiar with this. Or he says we may apprehend it directly through contemplative practice and recognize through our own experience the dreamlike nature of phenomena, which is the way of the yogis, that is the Tibetan Buddhist yogic practitioners of such practices, tantrayanas, deity yoga, for instance. I'm not necessarily going into the details of that right now. So here's my question. If we're supposed to recognize through our own experience the dreamlike nature of phenomena, that is that, as the saying goes, life is a dream, life is but a dream, right? don't we have to know really what dreaming is? Can we really understand the dream-like nature of something if we don't have a firm grasp of what the experience of dreaming is? Everyone thinks, oh, I know what a dream is. I dreamed last night. But deeper, have we examined dreams? Have we actually looked at dreams? Of course, we all have a feel for what a dream is in our own experience, but I can tell you that through practice and through study, we can make that feel more precise and more nuanced. Having spent hundreds and thousands of hours working with people's dreams over the past 20 years, I believe that through a careful study of the phenomenology of dreams, that is the appearance, the way dreams appear to us as taking place in a matrix, a continuum of space, time, and feeling, by really carefully paying attention more minutely to the way dreams actually operate. Not what we think dreams are doing, but what we actually experience in dreaming. Then I think we can understand not only dreams, but the dreamlike nature of phenomena in a more precise way. So the term phenomenology is a hard to pronounce word, but basically it means the study of appearances. It's a Greek word, the study of appearances. That is simply your subjective experience. What appears before you, a tree, a person you care for or don't care for. This is the study of that experience of subjectivity, we might say. And what we notice is that there are certain continuities of this. For instance, in waking life, we have a point of view. I am an I see myself as experiencing things that are outside of me. Now, whether that's really true is a different matter. We're not talking about the ultimate truth of that, but we're saying that that's how I experience phenomena, right? They're out there and I'm taking them in, right, through the senses. So that's how I experience phenomena. Now, likewise, we notice that with dreams, usually there's also a point of view. And just as conventionally in waking life, that point of view tends to be egotistical, or as His Holiness would say, self-cherishing. We're looking out for number one, as our society says, where we're looking at things and saying, is this good for me? Is this bad for me? In the same way, in the dream, we have a point of view, which is very similar to an ego. I'll call it a dream ego, which is also asking the same kinds of questions and making up the same kinds of stories that the ego makes in waking life. And likewise, just as in waking life, we take in things through the senses, we see, we hear, we smell, and touch and feel. Likewise, in dreams, we have dream senses. And now we may say, well, it's all just a dream. It's all just an illusion. Nonetheless, we can distinguish between an event in a dream as perceived by dream senses and what is simply a fantasy or a thought or opinion of the dream point of view. Okay, that's a really basic distinction. Likewise, and maybe more fundamental for tonight's talk, we can distinguish between reactions and feelings, or if I may say so, between afflictive emotions and deep feelings. And I want to suggest that those are not the same in waking life, and they're not the same in dreams. Okay, so let's go to some examples of how this would work. Here we have two dreams. Okay, so in the first sense, we see that a person is saying, I was scared. So here's the dream. I was sitting at a bus stop and I was scared the bus would be late and I would miss my exam. So I've underlined, I was scared. That's the language the person used, right? Okay. Here's a very different dream from a very different dreamer. He's saying, I'm sitting with people on the side of a narrow pathway in the woods. We're huddled together, not daring to move as giant lions pass beside us. Very different situation, isn't it? I remember feeling one lion's breath in my face as he was looking at me with his mouth wide open. My heart was pounding and I was scared. So what we realize is that the language we have for feeling is very muddy, very muddled in many cases, and very imprecise. Although both dreamers use the same phrase, I was scared, they mean entirely different states of mind, right? In the first dream, there's no immediate existential situation. In fact, there's no bus, the person's just sitting at a bus stop, right? All of this reaction that he calls scared is actually taking place within his own point of view. You see what I'm saying? It's not out there, it's within his point of view. And really, he's looking ahead to what might happen. What might happen if the bus is late and if I miss my exam and ... what would happen next? So you see that in a certain way, the point of view is not present for any feeling. There's no real feeling in this dream, in my opinion. I don't name this as feeling. I name it as reaction, and clearly it is also an afflicted or afflictive state of mind. Okay. So in the second dream, huddled together, not daring to move, the lion stops. The dreamer feels the lion's breath on his face. He sees the lion looking at him with his mouth open. His heart is pounding. This is terror. He uses the word scared, but this is really terror. And we can say that this is existential, right? This is in the moment. It's present tense. It's immediate. This is what I would name as a feeling. So basically, in dreams, we can distinguish, and I think in life too, between feeling and reaction. And I'm equating reaction with afflictive state of mind. So the basic game I want to play with the dream is to say that a feeling is an emotion that's immediate, does not have a story around it, is not projecting into the future or thinking about the past. It's immediate, right? It's often felt throughout the entire body. Okay. This kind of terror is heart pounding, but it's felt throughout the whole body. That's feeling. In the first dream, we have none of that. The person isn't really probably in his body, not particularly in the present or in the moment. So that's a distinction. So I want to suggest that the first dream is anxiety, which is a reaction, afflictive state of mind, and the second is terror. You may disagree, it's fine, but give me some rope so I can hang myself on it. And clearly, the cure, I want to say that the cure for anxiety is terror. That the real cure for the afflictive state of mind of anxiety, if you're suffering from constant anxiety, is to go deeper and actually feel terror. Okay? That is, the ability to feel more deeply is an antidote to reactive states of mind. And this is the journey dreams can take us on if we're guided by someone who knows the way. So let's look at a second example, a different kind of feeling, a very simple dream. This fellow, Bill Q, is dreaming about an event, at least based on the color of the fireplace, an event that happened when he was a young person going off to college. When I asked him, he said the event didn't actually happen. But in the dream, not quite in this way, but in the dream, he says, I was leaving the old house. My father was standing in front of the fireplace. My mother had painted white. I went to the door to leave. I came back. I just wanted to hug him. I love you, Dad, he said. His father held him for a long time. I was crying hard. So this is a very simple dream of feeling, but not so simple if you pay a little attention to the movement in space and time, right? Because there's a very simple movement away from the father. He's leaving the house. Then he turns around. He returns to the father. So that movement back to the father in space also corresponds to becoming closer to him in feeling. So in dreams, space, time, feeling are all interacting with each other in the field, right? Now, think for yourself for a moment, just how would you name that feeling? What is the feeling that you see or feel into when you feel into this dream? What would you say the feeling is if you had to put a name on it? We'll just hold it for a moment to see, but just take a moment to feel into that. So I guess I gave some of the answer I thought. We could call it pain. He's crying. Maybe there's a release of pain there. We could call it love and joy. He's being embraced by his father and held by him. In fact, there's really in this little scenario a richness and resonance to feeling, which has a very different quality from the automatic and mechanical nature of afflictive emotions. When we feel trapped by repetitive afflictive emotions that punish us, whether it's constant shame, constant worry, constant guilt, constant rage at others, whatever it is, when we feel driven by these feelings, they feel like they feel very mechanical and partial. But here, the dream opens to a richness and complexity of feeling. And the reason I say emotions afflict us is in part because they restrict us from the full range of human feeling. So let's look at another example. This is a dream of someone called Nina. So Bill, who's her husband, and I are walking on a snow-dusted dirt road, low rock cliffs on either side. I notice fresh paw prints in the snow. Are they dog? Coyote? They're really big. I follow the tracks a bit and then show Bill. They look like mountain lion, Bill says. Whoa. I raise my head to look at the rocks above us, and a few feet away is a large coyote. He's standing very still, not looking at us. He's looking at the other side of the road. I follow his gaze, and just above us is a large mountain lion looking at us. Fear rises. So again, I chose a dream with a fairly direct and simple encounter. Notice that we're having an encounter with a coyote and an encounter with a mountain lion. And the feeling that she names is fear. But I think if we feel into it, we just recognize that our vocabulary is so limited, right? This is not being afraid of missing a bus. This is something else. This is immediate. This is felt along the nerves. This is existential. It's very present tense. So in truth, feelings are much richer than afflictive states of mind. They are like a single rich musical note on a piano or an instrument like that, where there are multiple overtones. So we have fear, we have awe, we have terror, maybe all stacked together in one moment, right? So in both dreams, a strong feeling arises through an encounter with a dead father or a living mountain lion, right? So we can say that encounter in dreams really encounter in dreams produces either feeling or reaction or indifference, right? That is, sometimes the point of view experiences a feeling, as in this dream. Sometimes the point of view will react not feel, but have a reaction, which is different from feeling. And sometimes the point of view will report, I didn't feel a thing, which could be indifference, or it could be insensitivity or numbness, right? But the strongest feelings arise through an encounter, usually with a living, breathing image, which technically is called an imago, and as an image with a palpable presence, as the dad in the previous dream or the mountain lion in this one. So what do I mean by a reaction dream? So here we go, a reaction, all right? So this is a little different. So in this dream, we don't have a direct encounter, and in this dream, we have a reaction. And those two things often go together. We react to things that we see at a distance. When we have an encounter, sometimes we can break through to an actual feeling. So this dream is called The Wounded Elk. It's actually from the same person, but a bit earlier on in doing this work together. So she says, I'm walking along an upper balcony of what feels like a hotel. So notice the placement in space. She's above. Off the balcony, I see a large elk lying on the ground being attacked by another elk. His side is opened up and bloody. So I asked her, actually, well, how far away are you? She said about 20 feet away. So she's at some distance. A large crowd watches. A young man walks back to a waiting car carrying the elk's bloody rack of antlers. I am horrified. From the balcony, I yell, that's against the law. It turns into a chant that the others pick up. In unison, they chant, that's against the law. So here we understand that when she says she's horrified, and when she starts yelling at the guy carrying off the antlers, that this is a reaction, right? She's angry and self-righteous, right? And if, the rule of thumb, well, what I actually said to her in the session was basically, are you a park ranger? Like, are you in charge of making the rules for the park? Is that your job? And she laughed, which was great, because then I knew she was ready to move with the dream, okay? So we can put it this way, a reaction can be seen as an energetic displacement of real feeling. The feeling is never felt. The feeling is not really engaged in this dream, but instead she reacts to the feeling and directs it at the young man, and the feeling, the core feeling underneath the reaction is never felt. Instead, we have the reaction. We might say that the energy of the reaction is equal to the energy of the unfelt feeling, but it gets dispersed into various objects. It's kind of like, if you are really terrified in your life, you might disperse that into 1,000 different little anxieties. So if you added up all the little anxieties you had during the day that preoccupy you, it might make one great sum of terror that you're not experiencing, you're not really aware of. It's occurring at a deeper level. Okay. So notice that a reaction in this case is also bound up with a story. In this case, a story about the rules of the park and what's against the rules or not against the rules and so forth. And, this attention, the rules just become an excuse for having the reaction. We love to have a reaction. No one wants to be just angry, but it's great to be angry if you're on the right side of things and you have a just cause. Then anger is cool, right? So if we have a lot of reactivity that wants to express itself as anger, it's great to have a good reason for it. I'm not saying the reason is good or bad, actually. What I'm really saying is it's a displacement of a deeper feeling that the person doesn't get to experience. And that's a shame. So let's kind of go into detail now. How can we move from a reaction to a feeling in life and with dreams? So let's start with the dream, right? So we have a little detail here from the previous dream, right? So I'm walking along an upper balcony of what feels like a hotel. I've mentioned that in dream phenomenology, the space, time, and feeling interact. If you're at a distance from something, looking at it from down from above, that indicates you're not really feeling it, right? If you're watching something on TV in a dream, you're not experiencing it directly. Do you see what I'm saying? If it's mediated. So we try to move people to have a closer engagement with the feelings in the dream, but we don't want to go too far. We have to be wise in how we do that, right? So in this case, because when I asked her if she was a park ranger and she laughed, I knew there was kind of an opening maybe to do a little bit of imagining right together. So this is part of what we do in the work. And so I simply asked her to return to this first part of the dream, see the elk attacking the other elk, and then kind of close her eyes and move herself closer and closer to the scene. And you might close your eyes and try to do it yourself. Just visualize yourself really coming close and seeing one elk attacking the other. Not judging it, just being present for that moment that the dream offered you, right? So just try that for a moment. And the question really is, if you keep gazing at this image, if you contemplate this image, this dreamlike phenomena, which happens to be a dream, what strong feeling arises for you? What is the feeling, you see, that arises? So give yourself a moment to do that, right? Really see if you can see this. It doesn't matter that it's not your dream. See if you can see this for a moment, right? And I can tell you that for Nina, the feeling was tremendous pain that she felt as her own pain. She burst into tears. And so there was kind of a breakthrough there, because the feeling of pain in this case that she felt in the image communicated, she felt it for herself in her own body. Very important discovery, right? So I didn't tell her what to feel. I don't work that way. I simply asked her to come close to the image, close enough to see it and feel it, and the feeling arises if the person's ready to feel. And perhaps some of you felt it too. We'll see when we get to the discussion what your experience was. So what we're really doing with moments of encounter in a dream where there's a possibility of feeling, like the man hugging his father, or seeing the mountain lion above you, or in this case, tinkering a little bit with the dream so you get close enough to feel the image. What we're doing in each case is, in the session, asking the person to feel, and then you take that moment with you until the next time we meet, and you practice it for just a few moments, feeling the feeling that the image brings. And by doing that, you gradually move into a real sense of what feelings are in you, how they work in you, and perhaps you begin to encounter feelings you didn't know you had, at least not at that level of intensity. And that's, to me, of great value. We do not practice reactivity. We do not practice reactions. I wouldn't give her an assignment to yell at the guy who stole the antlers. You understand? We're not reinforcing afflictive states of mind, but we are moving from the reaction to a deeper place of feeling. So just recalling that, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche speaks of how through a practice of contemplation, we can recognize through our own experience the dreamlike nature of phenomena. I'm suggesting that one way to do that is to recognize, and it sounds like a reversal, but maybe it's the same idea, the real experience of dream phenomena. That is, taking dreams so seriously that you begin to feel the images in them becomes a pathway to seeing the feelings that are in the images in waking life as well, and to feel life with more direct connection of feeling, which is, in my view, a way to get out from under afflictive states of mind. So in this case, by contemplating this moment of encounter of the wounding of the elk, Nina began to recognize her own pain. She also began to recognize ways in which she stands on a balcony in relationship to her pain, kind of philosophizing and being remote from her feelings. There is something some of you may know about called spiritual bypassing, where you use spiritual practices to avoid feelings that you don't like to feel. Well, that's like standing on the balcony and seeing things at a great distance. So to know our own pain is important, because then we can know and have that desire for enlightenment, the desire for the medicine. If you don't know your own pain or your own terror, you don't know why you need the medicine. Okay. You can't know it by standing on the balcony, and you can't know it by not feeling things. Now, to some, if you overlook or override your deeper feelings of pain or terror, or of love, which can also be painful and terrifying, that overlooking or overriding a feeling may look peaceful, but actually may be also an avoidance of what is real for you. This is the path that I find in dreams. Let's look at another example, and then we're going to move to a second topic, which is the emptiness of phenomena in dreams. But before we do that, let's give one more example of moving from reaction into feeling. And in this dream, there's not just the dreamer and whatever the phenomena is, in this case, the imago of a lion again. I guess we're on lions tonight. But also there's a third party in the dream who's very important. I want to introduce this simply because so often in the work I'm doing, that this third party plays a very important role. So I'll explain more in a minute, but let's read the dream. It's called The Lion Lick. This is a different dreamer. She says, I'm in an elevator and a man is taking us on a tour. He takes me down and opens a door. We're with wild animals, lions and tigers. I am so scared. And he tells me to come in. And I am worried they will kill me. He tells me to sit down, which she does, interestingly. He sprays a mist on me, and a big female lion walks over and licks my face and arms. Then she sits down and puts her head against mine. I don't move. It feels so good. I close my eyes and lean into her furry head. After a bit, she gets up and walks away. It's a marvel. So here we also see a movement in space and time. They went down in the elevator, and going down very often dreams means you're going into a deeper place. She thought this guy was a tour guide, but when the elevator opened, there were lions and tigers. Okay, so immediately she goes into a very understandable reaction. I'm not saying reactions are bad. Sometimes they're vital. Here she has a reaction, right? She's a mixture of terror and worry, right? I'm terrified. I'm scared. I think terrified is probably a good word. And I'm worried what will happen next. So it's actually kind of mixed together. But the important thing is, in the dream, she can't move any further into the scene. She's paralyzed by what she sees. So he says, first of all, sit down. He's acting as a guide. Then he does this little magic trick. He sprays mist on her, which of course makes no sense, right? But somehow, by his spraying that mist, she can now relax a bit and feel into letting this lion approach her without reacting. And when she does, she experiences a marvel, the marvelous, and awesome, something awesome. So we see that her initial fear and maybe her worry, but probably primarily fear, deepens here into something we would have to call awe, right? When we see a lion, I think we feel awe, if we can allow ourselves to feel it, right? And we see that the role in this case of the figure in the dream is similar to the role that, in some ways, that I played with Nina in the other dream, where I helped her move closer to the elk goring the other elk. In this case, this magical figure in the dream does it for her. He does a little magic trick. He sprays her with water, which in waking life terms makes no sense, but in the dream makes perfect sense as a way to kind of shift her attention and also allow her to trust him. And she needs to feel that trust in order to stay with the experience of the lion. So the reaction of anxiety, whatever is of anxiety there, becomes deeper, it becomes fear, the fear deepens into awe and wonder. And so that's the movement of feeling in a dream. And I want to say, although dreams have stories in them, primarily dreams are movements of feeling. Primarily dreams are movements of feeling. So what we see here is that when we are in reaction, we aren't really in relationship to feelings in a deep way. We keep our distance, or we look ahead to what might happen next, or we look down as from a balcony, so we're not really available to feel. Okay. So we're going to have some time for questions, but let me I'll just kind of move through this next part, and then I hope if you have questions, you either jotted them down or you can save them. I apologize, but I think it's probably easier if I just move through this part. Okay, so His Holiness mentioned two aspects of afflictive emotions. One was the I, the nature of the ego, seeing itself as self-cherishing, as self-important, and the other is the nature of phenomena, recognizing the emptiness or shunyata that is underlying all phenomena, right? And both of these can be displayed in dreams. So if a dream can show us the emptiness of phenomena, that's a terrific thing. That's a direct experience of emptiness, not just reading about it philosophically, but to actually experience it immediately. What is also important is how the dream I, the dream point of view, encounters this emptiness. Now, there's no time in this presentation tonight to really go into detail about how the dream ego itself dissolves through immersion in dreams, that gradually the nature of the dream point of view, the dream ego, changes through acquaintance with deep feeling and with dream experience. But we'd have to do that in another segment if we ever do that again, if not here, somewhere. So, if you're interested, I invite you to, let me know. In any case, let's look at the other side of His Holiness's equation, which is what I would call the dream surround. That is everything in the dream except for the point of view. Everything else in the dream, we call it the dream surround. The truth is, it's all one, but that's not how we experience our dreams. People will say, I saw such and such in my dream. They're experiencing the dreams in an egocentric way, right? They don't experience themselves as at one with everything in the dream, even though philosophically they might believe that. They don't experience the dream that way any more than most people experience waking life that way. Okay. But let's look at how the dream surround dissolves, melts into air, how we might experience that. And so at least have a direct experience of this emptiness, at least some hint of what emptiness might be about. Now, this can be depicted in dreams as For instance, someone stands on the gate of a corral, one of my dreamers did, and suddenly the whole corral collapses. Wow. That's amazing. Like this solid looking thing, you put your foot on it, it immediately collapses. So that's an experience of that the phenomena aren't what they seem to be, right? A wall might come down. That's a very common dream. In this case, it's a sandwich that collapses. I thought I'd start small. Okay, so a sandwich collapses. So here's the excerpt from this dream. An old woman comes in the kitchen. She's hungry and she finds an Oreo cookie. The dream point of view, I feel remiss in not offering food to everyone. Now, just stop there for a minute. That's a reaction, right? This person is having a reaction to this moment. Someone comes in, wants an Oreo cookie. I feel remiss, self-criticism, guilt, responsibility. Those are afflictive states of mind, right? There's no indication in the dream, by the way, that it's her kitchen. Doesn't look like her kitchen. That she's in charge of feeding everybody who's hungry. None of that. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? So she's having a reaction. It comes in the way she constructs the reality around her. Okay. There's a large tray of fancy egg sandwiches on top of the fridge. So I pull one down, work around this old woman at the sink to find a plate and plate it for her. So she does all of this stuff because God forbid this old woman is hungry for a cookie and you don't feed her. That's a terrible thing, right? But then what happens? The sandwich responds. I see it that way. The sandwich is actually responding to her reactivity by kind of playing a trick on her. It falls apart. It's a very playful sandwich. Saying, you want to fix everything. You want to make everything good for everybody else. I'll fall apart to show you that that has no inherent reality. So the sandwich falls apart. So often what we do, as I said, is we take a moment from the dream and offer it as a contemplation over the next week or 2 weeks until we meet again. In this case, I simply asked her, gaze at the sandwich as it collapses. Feel that moment. What feeling arises in you when the sandwich collapses? And if you practice that, you start to get an understanding that a lot of the constructions you have of reality, right? I'm supposed to feed other people and I'm a bad person if I don't. A lot of these conditionings and constructions, afflictive states of mind, have no actual inherent reality. The sandwich falls apart. Okay. So you might try that contemplation sometime or something similar. Here's maybe a more dramatic example. Okay, so this person is in a house a few blocks from her own. It's not her house. She's sitting on the deck and she can see my redwood tree, meaning the redwood tree at her house. So she's lucky enough to live near a redwood forest. My dad came in the room to say something to me. Her father's been dead for 20 years. So in the dream, she doesn't feel that. So notice that. She doesn't actually feel that encounter. We were having a party and things were ready. My daughter came in talking about party surprises she made. All of a sudden, I saw my redwood tree move. It swayed again and again. I said to them, it's going down. I had a talk with my tree today and she told me she was going down. Now, I asked her, did you talk to your tree in the dream? No. She believes she talked to the tree previous to the dream. Okay. That's something that took place in her. Nonetheless, she is right. In this case, what she's thinking is true is also true because with that, she, the tree, toppled and fell toward my house. I couldn't see the house, but knew she landed on it. Notice that she doesn't really see the tree land on her house. She just sees the tree falling. That's what she sees in the dream. That's the event. Okay, very important. That's the event. Not the house being destroyed. She doesn't see that. She sees the tree fall. I went into shock and said, It's gone now. She's taken the house. It's gone. I remember falling to the ground and curling up in a ball, feeling it. It's gone now. Everyone is staring. I called to my daughter and said, I just need you to hold me right now. My tree is gone. My house is gone. It's all gone. It was such a desolation. It kind of reminds us of the sutra, right? Gone, gone, far gone, right? Gate, gate, parasam gate. It's all gone. This collapse of the tree, right? The collapse of her body in imitation of that. It's a really deep feeling in which the experience of the emptiness of phenomena is not so easy to take in, to accept. We have to learn to allow ourselves to feel more deeply in order to feel what that's about for us, not as a theory, but as an experience, right? We talk about shunyata philosophically, that's nice, but what does it actually feel like to recognize that everything you think of as real, my redwood tree, right? My car, my, my beloved, is inherently empty, has no permanency. What does that feel like? Dreams offer you an opportunity to experience that directly. And I think that's quite profound. So I can only touch on that here. It really could be a whole topic about how emptiness or collapse appears in dreams and how different people respond either through reactivity, trying to fix the thing that broke, or through guilt, different reactions, or whether they actually just get to be with it, as I think this person does. She really feels it, and in that feeling of falling to the ground, she feels her need for love. She feels her vulnerability, her need for her daughter. It's a very moving moment, in my opinion. So it made me think about William Shakespeare's play The Tempest, which comes at the very end of his life, toward the end of his career. He'd written all the tragedies and all the comedies, and The Tempest is kind of called a romance. It's kind of in between. But there's a character, a magical character, who's kind of like the guy who sprayed the woman in the previous dream. He's called Prospero, and he's a master of illusion. You might say he's the master of the dream, just like Shakespeare is. There's a famous speech that mentions dreams, which I suspect many of you know, and here it is delivered by a British actor. So,
our revels now are ended, and these our actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherits, shall dissolve. And like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on. And our little life is rounded with a sleep.
so sometimes our dreams can show us the difference between feeling and reaction. And I think that is crucial in working with afflictive states of mind. Sometimes our dreams can drop us into this deeper place of realizing the impermanent nature of all phenomena. And then I think they offer a foretaste of enlightenment. If we can learn to stay in our feelings and not go into reactions, if we can be with the feelings, then we can take that moment of encounter with the very empty nature of the phenomena in dreams and in waking life. So I'm going to stop with the show here, and we'll come together. And I'd like to open it up to questions if you have any.
So there was, Roger, this is Jennifer, there was a question that Linda asked in the chat.
Okay.
She said, can one feel too deeply?
Where's Linda? Is she here?
Linda, if you're still here, you can unmute yourself if you care to.
Right, you don't have to.
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't see you.
You don't see me, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Now I
If
see
you-
you.
Hi.
If
Hi,
you
Okay.
there's
stop,
a lot of us.
I see you there. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
So you want to state your question again? It's a nice question. I like it.
Can one feel too deeply?
Yeah. So what do you think?
Yes.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Sometimes it's very important to feel
Mm-hmm.
and to know one's feelings. And
Right.
at other times, it's good to put it aside
Mm-hmm.
and come from another place
Mm-hmm.
because that's more wise. And if you stay with the feeling too long,
Right.
you're not ready for it and it's going to hurt or it's going to not be. It doesn't have a place. I don't know if I make sense.
Right. No, I'm sorry. Here we go. Is that now I'm here? Okay. Sorry. I apologize. So yes, I think what you're saying is wise and makes sense. In terms of working with people, I find more often that the work is to get people to move from reaction to feeling. And I think we both agree, I hope we agree, that reactivity or afflictive states of mind is not the same thing as deep feeling. But it's true that for some people, the feelings are so deep and that they need perspective, or they need to take a break from them, or they need to move up on the balcony to look down at them. That's certainly quite possible. I mean, I know there's so many different situations. I'm just saying that for me, the value of dreams is that they show feelings in a context, and so allow us to understand our feelings and discover feelings. So very often in dreams, we discover feelings that we haven't yet known in life, such as love, real terror. We may have been so lucky as never to really experience it. And so dreams also allow us a chance to stretch into feelings and to kind of broaden the range of feeling, which I think makes for a richer experience as a human being generally.
So that's very existential, the fully comprehensive feeling of being, and fully allowing yourself to be in that moment.
Right. Well, since I'm a poet, I'll just make a metaphor and say that a lot of times we're kind of like, there are a lot of feelings we have we don't want to feel. Okay. And so we flee them. So in the case of the elk, the wounding of the elk dream, if you recall that, when she didn't want to feel that. So she starts off on the balcony and then she yells at the guy. So she never really gets to experience the feeling that the image in the dream wanted to offer her. Okay. So that's telling her something about how she rolls in waking life as well, in terms of avoiding feeling and thereby getting trapped or caught up in afflictive states of mind. But I'm allowing what you say. I think it's true that for some people, maybe, especially if it's terror or sadness, it may be very difficult to live with these feelings. But I find most of the people I encounter in the work I'm doing, that's not really the way they're experiencing things. The metaphor I wanted to make was a piano. Imagine a piano where all the keys from 5 octaves, from the one end and 2 octaves in the other are not allowed to play and can only play a few notes in the middle, maybe only the white keys. You see what I'm saying? That our feelings we could want the whole 88 key range, I think, black and white notes, right? Maybe some in between.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. It's a very good question and challenging, but I appreciate that.
So there are a number of questions coming in.
Okay, sure.
So Anne Cantor asks, what criteria do you use to decide if some dreams are more important than others? And then we'll go to Alexis and Stephen because they have their hands up.
Sure. So when I'm working with a client, some of it is intuitional. Where's the voltage? Where's the electricity? Where's the power? Right? You can feel that. I mean, after a while, you get a feel for it. Again, I'll use the example of the elk. The elk goring the other elk. You got to feel that, right? You get an instinct for that. Yelling at somebody about a rule, not so much. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So you can sort of differentiate within a dream what a feeling is. And the same way as you go through the dreams, what you're looking for, we talk about in natural dream work. And our website, by the way, is thenaturaldream.com. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at thenaturaldream@gmail.com or just my last name at Gmail. We talk of the sacred encounter. So we're saying we're looking for moments of encounter either with a person or presence, an imago, or sometimes with an image, a thing, like the sandwich, right? You can encounter a sandwich in a dream, and as you see it collapse, there's a feeling inside of you. So those are the things we're looking for within dreams, and the rest of it is kind of just by feel, I would say, what seems to have the most energy. Also, I often ask the client, which dream do you want to do? And I encourage the client to go for the ones that they don't want to do. So that's a little trick I have too, right? Okay.
So Stephen?
Yes, thank you, Stephen. Two things. One, I get what you're saying. To be really simple is just like in life, it's better to feel the feelings than to try to react or fix them or cope with them or do something about them. That's the essence, is it not? To go ahead and just bask in or allow the feeling. We often run away in dreams.
Yes.
That's not what I wanted. I've had dreams where I ran away and they chased me and I was slow and they caught up with me. And one time I actually turned and embraced the monster and everything transformed. It was wonderful.
Right.
The other thing I want to say, though, is I've had a lot of dreams lately where I'm not prepared. I walk into a test and I haven't studied and I'm freaking out. Or I can't understand the lecturer. I just don't get it. Or I'm in a university and I haven't figured out which classes I want to take. A lot of dreams like that.
Mm-hmm.
And very anxious, and I try to cope. Perhaps, two things. One, I've thought about gestalting it, meaning working with the feelings even within the dream, or when I wake up and I can remember it, working with the feelings somehow, allowing myself to feel, dialoguing with myself. And because they're somewhat thematic, meaning they're often this unpreparedness, anxiousness, I'm late, I think we all have these. Somehow I'd like not to keep having them, it's okay, but I'd like to work with them.
Okay, so let me.
Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, sure. So we agree, I think, that this is an afflictive state of mind, anxiety, and it's quite common in waking life. So one thing to do with a dream like that is to ask yourself, well, when do I feel like this in waking life? And it may not be, you may not be in that situation of taking tests anymore, but it's a feeling, it's a reaction, really, an afflictive state of mind. The second thing is what we venture to do, and it takes sometimes a lot of detailed work with the particular dream or set of dreams, is to really, well, as the Dalai Lama suggested, there are two aspects to it. One is the construction of self. Who do you think you are in the dream? You may be mistaken. You may think you're supposed to take a test, but maybe you're not. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is understanding what you are feeling at a deeper level. And usually there are openings, even in such dreams, to find out, but they're often pretty subtle. So, generally, by moving, as I suggested in the example, by moving from worry or anxiety to terror, you actually, even though no one wants to feel terror, by feeling your terror, you actually can be released from your constant anxiety, if that's a particular issue the dream's pointing to. It may not be in that dream, maybe in other dreams as well, but I'd say if someone's presenting dreams like that, I'm looking for what's underneath the anxiety. And by carefully working with the dream, we can find it. Without the specific dream, it's hard for me to respond. But I'll tell you one dream I wrote about a while back where I'll tell you another dream I didn't write about. But a guy came into my house with the mailman, and he was like wandering around the house, and I was kind of controlling my feelings, like, well, I don't really like this guy in my house. I don't know who he is. He looks like a homeless man or something, and blah blah blah. And then he started moving far away and touching stuff in the room, and I yelled at him, and he immediately came and put a pistol to my throat. So I moved from anxiety to terror. Okay, so by moving to terror, the guy helped me, because then I realized, all this anxiety about who's in my house, who touches my stuff, was really just spraying from this deeper place of terror about who I am and who I let in. So that was very instructive, and that was helpful. So
there's lessons.
Well, it's not just a lesson,
lessons,
it's a capacity. You're right, it's lessons, but also what I'm trying to say is if you can actually move to the feeling and experience it in the dream and then practice the feeling with the scenario, you can deepen your capacity to feel. And that is helpful in dealing with anxiety. Let me give some other folks a chance, though.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So Alexis has had her hand up for a while.
Hello, Alexis. We've known each other a long time. How are you?
I have to unmute, mostly through Facebook, but I'm fine. Yeah, I just wondered if you could talk for a moment about the process by which dreams inform or shape your poems.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've been writing down my dreams for years and years, and I've always thought there was a connection. And a few years ago, I realized that I would have a dream and wake up from it, and instead of writing down the dream, I would write a poem instead. And so I call that sort of writing in the perfume of the dream. And I found that that state of mind, this fluidity, this focus on imagery, this kind of abolition of ordinary waking life common sense and logic was a great help to me. And of course, poets who always inspired me, like Rimbaud, or very oniric or dream-based, but also really reading a lot of Keats. Keats has so much to say about dreams in poetry throughout his career. And so I think there is, what I would want to say is something like this, that I happen to be a poet, so I'm stuck with that, but whatever artist or whatever creative process each of us has, one way that we experience that in a primal sense is by dreaming. So one of the benefits of paying attention to your dreams is to begin to experience directly this marvelous thing that each human being is constantly producing spontaneously marvelous images. one after the other. It's happening at night, we're more aware of it. It's actually happening at every moment. The Tibetans speak of dream mind. We can slip into dream mind at any moment, not while you're driving, but almost at every moment. And by experiencing the ever evolving nature of this is constant fountain that's flowing in each human being, which is really a marvelous thing. Paying attention and honoring that in us, which is something I find is a great benefit of doing dream work. It's a very creative refreshment, right? It refreshes your sense of your creativity. And unfortunately, in our society, people get divided up early on in school. Oh, he's creative, she's not, blah, blah, blah. I'm a creative, I'm not. The truth is we all are. We all have this ever evolving imagery going on. But unless you develop methods and crafts for capturing that, some of it gets lost, okay? But even the act of writing down your dreams stimulates creativity because it challenges language. Or some people draw their dreams, whatever, but it challenges your soul to respond and to meet up with the tremendous imagination that we all have. So yeah, I do it with poetry.
Hold on, I'm hard of hearing. I just missed the one sentence about it stimulates your creativity by writing down the dreams.
Yeah, it's a challenge of it, Alexis. In other words, when you're, the fact is you wake up and there's this dream and you saw colors, you saw so much going on, and how do I find the right, like sometimes you see things in dreams, but you don't know the names of them, which is kind of an amazing thing, right? And what is that thing I saw? I know it has a word for it, but I don't know what it is. So of course, it's a tremendous challenge to our creativity to respond to the dream and at least get some of it down. And I think that's already setting up what I think is essentially the artistic process, right? There's something moving in you. I know you do creative work, you're a writer and a filmmaker, so you know what I mean, that there's stuff going on inside of you that you try to put into a form that others can receive. But I believe it's in all of us. It's not just an artist.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Well, we have about one more minute, so maybe
Okay.
Shanti, do you have a quick question? Maybe Shanti disappeared.
I will try to ask my question, and hopefully it is a short one. I was fascinated with the story with the elk, and this idea of it could have been an opportunity for the dreamer to experience pain at close quarters.
Right.
But it turned out in the dream to be an expression of outrage. And I was curious, do you think as human beings, we are capable of constructing imagery that kind of soothes our ego? For example, in this case, it's easy to be indignant and be self-righteous when you feel like you're on the right. And do you feel like that's something we might end up doing in our dreams to soothe our ego?
Thank you, Shanti, for that wonderful question. It's really an invitation to what I was suggesting earlier, that the whole topic of the dream point of view or the dream ego as a way of understanding ego in general would be a whole other topic. So just as His Holiness suggested that one of the issues with afflictive states of mind is the state of the dream, of the ego, right? This self-cherishing attitude. The same thing operates in a dream. What I would add just briefly as kind of a preview, I hope that I could teach this again either in this context or another, is the sense that the ego is a story-making mechanism. So the ego in waking life is constantly making up stories, which aren't the same as imagination, or they are at best impaired imagination or fantasy. There are stories where I'm the star, whether I'm the good guy or the bad guy, doesn't matter, whether I'm to blame or to blame others, doesn't matter as long as I, right? As long as I'm in the story. But so dreams provide a way gradually to see that story making lose its potency as it stands against the vigorous imagination of the spontaneous dream images. In this case, the elks wounding the other, who I could never have thought of that, right? I mean, that's not from my ego, right? That's coming from outside of me. It feels that way and has this incredible force and power. So whereas we understand reactivity is the same old story. It's the ego saying, in her case, I'm the boss of the national forest, whatever it is. So you absolutely get it. I mean, your question is excellent, and it's just a whole other study that I'd have to do with y'all to explain that in a little more detail. But I can promise you that gradually, as you immerse yourself in the deep feelings that dream images offer, the ego's stories lose their grip, and in turn, that helps us in waking life. So there you go. That's the best I could do for now, but thanks for the question. All right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thank you very much, Roger, for sharing this very interesting topic. Lots of activity in the chat. People seem to want to go on and on. I saved the transcript for you for later. And again, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a good night, no matter what time zone you're in, and have some feeling dreams.
Right. I'm going to share with you just the contact information. My website is kamenetz.com. The dream website is thenaturaldream.com, and that's my email if you want to be in touch. And happy to hear from any of you. I thank you all for giving me a little time in this beautiful winter evening. So I wish you all a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
So, okay. So, okay.